Yeah, okay.
Quick show of hands. How many people have had COVID before? There's no shame here, don't worry. How many people can sort of resonate with, like, after you had COVID, it hasn't been the same for you? So let me quickly describe and validate what she's saying. When I first had COVID, my left leg, it buckles up, and that was 2 years ago, 3 years now, and it's still that way. I say this to say whatever symptom you're having, you're not the only one. Speaking of symptoms, let's go first of all to one of the analogies you used. You described chronic pain as music playing in your ear. I really sort of liked that because I could now really understand what you were trying to say. Some days it plays in your ear, some days it's in your room, some days it's another part of the house, and some days the pain is like far off the street and you can have a semblance of a good day. Is there any analogy any other type of analogy you would like to give us? Because I know you're also a performance poet and I spy some tools.
Yeah, so I brought my spoons to.
Spoons, okay.
Yeah, have anyone here heard of the spoon theory? Have you ever heard anybody who is sick being referred to as spoonies? Okay, so the spoonies comes from the spoon theory, and the spoon theory is used by, it was by Kristen, I can't remember her surname, but I swear she has one. Um, it was used by Kristen something to describe how energy is for chronically ill and disabled people. And the reason why she used spoons was because she was at brunch with a friend and she wanted to visualize energy. So imagine this to be energy. As a healthy person, you have an unlimited amount of energy in a day. That means you have an unlimited amount of spoons. With the chronically ill people, somebody can wake up with like 7 spoons, 8 spoons. And this is not just something that they use to go hiking and lunch with friends and, just extra. It's for every single thing. I can't begin to tell you how everything requires energy. When you're healthy, you don't think of energy as a concept. I know I never thought of it. Um, but now I wake up and I think, oh, I have very little spoons today. What can I do? Sometimes it's nothing. You need this spoon to wake up, get out of bed, this to brush your teeth, this to eat, because eating requires energy. You never think of that as a healthy person, but it takes so much energy to pick up the spoon, chew, swallow, digest, whatever it is, it requires energy. If I say I'm going to write, I may need 3 or 4 spoons because using
I
my
think you
brain
might need
requires a
six
lot of energy.
spoons
Huh?
just to write, especially if it's for a Nigerian newsroom and a typical Nigerian editor, you need like 6 spoons.
Honestly, with the emotional aspect of it as well. So this is the spoon theory. So if somebody tells you I have little spoons, this is what they mean. I have little energy. I'm barely making it. I'm trying to survive. So it's very easy to understand pain because everybody has experienced pain in whatever degree in their lives. But when we say chronic fatigue, we're not talking about fatigue like, oh, I feel a little weak. It's a different species of tiredness. Think of the most tired you have felt in your life and try doubling it. And then imagine existing in that state continuously. Some days is less, some days is higher. Like I said, some days you're paralyzed and you can't even get out of bed. So that's how it works, and that's why it can impact your work and your relationships.
Thank you very much. I think it's quite interesting that you would step out of that and also be so literal with it. It's almost like you're teaching us. And for me, I think that's one of the good things about you being bold enough to share your experience, even though, as you said, you will be judged for it or pitied or um, even told, oh, you're just making an excuse. Speaking of which, I wanted to talk about the gender dimension of having illnesses. So I also have a chronic illness. I'm a cancer survivor. And it doesn't matter. People are still going to think, this is what she said. You don't have to clap. You don't have to clap. I'm sure there's millions of us. Um, but more seriously to the point, it will always be that no matter what's going on with you, you are still seen as an African, a Nigerian woman who has domestic things they should be doing. So, can you talk a bit more about that whole gender dimension, what it's been like for you, and possibly educate us as well?
You know how people like to say, don't bring gender into this? Well, I love to be the bearer of this news because gender is in everything. Gender affects everything. For instance, it's just in 1993, that's 2 years before I was born, that women started being included in clinical research. Do you know what this means? It means that if you take a hypertension drug, it's more likely to work for a guy, and you as a woman, you're more likely to end up with side effects and it not working properly for you. It also means that women's issues are under researched and under diagnosed and underfunded. Lupus, a chronic illness, has more funding than PCOS, which is a more common illness. So there is so much. Women are more likely to experience medical gaslighting, dismissal due to societal reasons. But according to a study in the Journal of Pain, women have a higher pain tolerance, but they are more likely to be dismissed because there's a gender aspect where you're assumed to be hysterical, dramatic. Are you on your period? You know, it must be PMS, that kind of thing. It may sound like something somebody would jest about with their friends, but it's actually a very large thing. So one of the work that I'm doing as a journalist is trying to highlight gender gaps, especially in research. Um, this issue gender is so serious that it's just last year, that's 2023, that they started using female shaped dolls to simulate car crashes. That means when you're driving and you're wearing a seatbelt, as a woman, if you get into an accident, you're more likely to end up with more injuries because they have never used female shaped dolls. So also when it comes to like the Nigerian aspect with the gender roles, um, people think there's no amount of sick or dying that actually should affect your work. I had someone tell me because I have a tea business, and somebody came and was like, "You keep saying you're sick, but you're making tea." Like I'm not climbing the hills of Mambila to go and get tea leaves every day, but it doesn't even make sense. And I was like, it takes me months to package my teas, and I still have to outsource a lot of things. It takes so much to just exist. And because of that, I also want to talk about privilege. I think in the documentary, I spoke about how people like to use you as an example in order to put down other chronically ill people. You're doing this, other people that are sick are not doing it. I want to tell you there are layers of privilege that made it possible for me to even just sit here. And one of it is that I can wake up with like 5 spoons. And because I have the privilege to outsource my cooking my food, cleaning my house, that kind of thing, I can use my energy to write a poem, to rehearse what to practice. Um, Before we started the documentary, Hauwa Saleh was supposed to go to an IDP camp and look for people with chronic illness. And do you know that what she found out when she went there was that their health is not a priority? Do you know what it means? There are people with symptoms like mine, and they don't even have the privilege to care about their health. So there are layers of privilege. And when you are giving those kind of compliments or saying those kind of things, what you're saying is you're not valuable if you're not doing this kind of things. So I usually feel the compliment usually feels like somebody is trapping me in a cage because I feel like what's going to happen when I'm not this productive, when I'm not this and I'm not that? Does that take away from my humanity? So someone said being placed on a pedestal is being done was is worse than being despised, and I have to agree because the only way to come down from a pedestal is to come crashing down. I don't want to be on a pedestal, and I don't think you should place anyone on a pedestal. And I think you should learn to see the humanity of people before any gender role, which is man-made. So I think there needs to be issue. If you have cousin or sister that is always sick, and like say, oh, this one she's always sick when there's work. Perhaps that could contribute to the problem.
So instead of adding more pain to those with pain, we should be a bit more sensitive. When I think I really like what you say about privilege because there was a figure. I don't want to speak out of turn. It is Kabafest were alive journalist. So, ballpark figure, billions of dollars worldwide will be spent by countries on health systems because of what we're expecting for long COVID. I think there was a report in Canada where they are talking about the fact that there will be people who will have more chronic illness because their immune system is down for COVID. So government will spend more on care homes, for example. And I think we have not come to terms yet in Africa, in Nigeria, about the long-term haul or cost of COVID. So let's talk a bit of money. What's the monetary cost? Talked about the emotional. What's the money? What has been the monetary cost to you of long COVID?
Well, money is it not buy happiness, but it definitely buys survival. So I really think it's important for people to understand that it's not just that it's not just that somebody is just depressed or sad or anxious. It's that their pocket suffers. The drugs that you buy sometimes, I have insurance now, it makes things very much easier. But before every money that I earn, almost like 70% of it goes to healthcare. And that's why every month I do something to treat myself because I'm not here to pay bills and pay hospital bills and die. So I'm just going to like live. I'm going to invest in experiences. I'm going to invest in things that I love. Um, there's a lot of monetary cost, and that's why people that are displaced cannot afford to care for their health. If you carry 100K and give a displaced person that has a chronic illness and says, go to the hospital, they're not going to go to a hospital. They're going to use it to get shelter. They're going to feed their families. It takes so much, there's so much financial cost.
So
And
give me an example. So you have to go for a test. You spoke about having a lab test, laparoscopy of your throat, for example, and you have to take meds. What do these things cost when you have a usual flare up or something?
I would say that maybe on an average month, I would spend like 30 to 40 on a normal hospital deal with consultation. I used to see my doctor every month and I pay 10,000 every visit. I have to be very prone to falling sick with like malaria, run a test, do malaria, consider transport that takes you to and from the hospital, drugs, the normal drugs that I take. So it's a lot, and other things can come up. Yeah. So I really don't have a figure in my head, but I can give an estimate of 30 to 40, and that's for me in a month.
In a
For
month,
Bombay. Yes.
how much is salary of journalists? Does anyone have a question? Because, okay, so before I come to you, because I have a lot of questions for Hawa, but I will come to you. Let me just quickly ask you. Um, what do you want bosses to know? Because I've done a lot of, I was talking to Zara. Sometimes it's just better to go freelance so you don't have to deal with the people saying, why are you not at work for this 9 to 5, and you don't go into the whole explaining. Just give me two things before we go to Q&A. What do you think bosses should know about
One,
chronic illness?
what matters is not the amount of work someone can do, but the quality they can provide. And that's what I'm so grateful for my workplace because they are very accommodating. My this thing is constantly being reviewed. If I say I can't do something, nobody tries to make me feel bad or forces me. um, let understand that the chronic ill person doesn't function like a normal person. They're functioning less. That doesn't mean they are giving out less quality. So hire people. There are many opportunities that I lost, and I didn't even realize why till someone said to my face that they're not going to give me an opportunity because I'm sick and it's so strenuous. They don't think it's fit for a sick person. Instead of making accommodations, so yeah, make accommodations, be inclusive in the work environment. What kind of building, is it disabled accessible? Those kind of things matters. Disability benefits. Yeah, I think it will go a long way.
I think we had question time. There was someone there and there. Can we get some mics to the good people of Kabafest? Thank you.
All right. My name is Abdul Basit. Kind of believe it's very strong for her to have talked about her condition. So bravo for that. My question is, as much as she said we've all experienced pain in different ways, it's kind of hard for you to experience another person's pain because you are not where they are. So I would love to ask her, for people who have this kind of conditions, what is the best way for family, friends, acquaintances to address them, talk to them, or because sometimes you want to talk and you feel like maybe you are poking, maybe sometimes, like, just what is the best approach to deal with people in these conditions? Thank you.
That's a great question.
Uh, First of all, you have to listen. Listen to when they're talking. You know, sometimes people get tired. If somebody says, I have a headache today, my leg is paining me tomorrow, they start to get irritated. But you have to understand if you feel that tired, what is the person that is living with it feeling? Um, Learn to show up in the way that they need. Everybody is different. But one thing that every human needs is that you, they want you to sit in their discomfort and their pain with them. Sometimes not saying anything. Sometimes asking how they are. And if they say, I don't want to talk about it, or they kind of, because sometimes it's different. Sometimes you're barely holding yourself together and someone asks how you are, and you feel like if I start talking, I'm going to break down. Try not to ask people how they're doing. This is something that people do, and answer before they answer, because that means you don't want to hear how they're doing. Sometimes people will say, how are you? And before you open your mouth, they're like, well, you look great, you're looking much
Yep.
better. That's not nice. Or just learn to be empathetic. You don't have to walk in someone's shoe. You just have to believe what they tell you about what's happening in their shoes. Empathy goes a long way. It centers the person that is receiving it, unlike sympathy, which centers the giver. So I think like it's very important to learn empathy, sit with discomfort, go at their own pace. Don't get upset with friends that cancel plans, especially if they have a valid reason. It hurts a lot to have to cancel a lot of plans. Living with uncertainty is not a nice place to be. So yeah, just listen.
It's interesting you say that. My father used to say, when you practice empathy, you are training the next person for when it's your turn. And I don't think I used to disagree with him because it doesn't the threat of you going through the same chronic illness should not be the reason why you should have empathy. But if you're so selfish, just do it for at least this reason. If it be you tomorrow. I mean, it's like the lottery can be any of us. I think we have one here and then another person there.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So he literally asked one of the questions I wanted to ask because I imagined what she said. Like, remember when you're tired, fatigue, just assume you're living in it. During those days of fasting, there was one day that I was tired. My tired was tired. I was just tired of being tired. So I assume that I live that tiredness every day. It's not nice. So I have a mother who is literally almost always sick. So we always go to the hospital. And one day, the doctor was like, what she said, you always complain. So I tend to reason with what my mother was saying. But sometimes she'll be like, I told her mutani, dole sai da hakuri. So we tend to understand the pain they're going through. We know that we cannot bring solution to their health. So my question was, how can we show them that we do care about what they're saying?
Is there anything else you want to add to help him and mom? That's a very good one. And I'm sure your mom is proud to have a son like you. Well done.
So like I answered the first question, just learn to sit with them, whether it's comfortable or just learn to sit with the discomfort. That's how we empathize with people. But also, instead of sometimes asking, what can I do to help? Doing things actually help. Maybe coming to help clean her room, something that will bother you, um, bringing something, sometimes we need to, people to know, we need to know that the people around us are attention. And it's very helpful that, oh, wow. It's very helpful that, well, you learn to sit with discomfort and you also listen sometimes when they are ranting, even if it's repetitive, because no two pains are the same. I can be feeling two different pains in my body, and I can feel a pain here today that is different from what I'll feel the same place tomorrow. So yeah, there's no getting used to pain. I think just seeing people, everybody wants to be seen, being heard, validated, it goes a long way.
I think we have one there and then some people here.
So if you would permit me to sit while I ask, please. Thank you. Um, how was the response from your family and friends earlier in the whole situation? Did you feel a sense like maybe you're discriminated against, or their response to you was slightly different? Because you can tell these things no matter how vague they are. Did you feel anything like that? Were they trying too hard not to come across as that? Were they stepping back? Did you notice any of these things?
Thank you.
I think something that was very clear, something that happened was at a point, because there was a time that it was really serious where I couldn't breathe on my own at the beginning. So I was admitted twice in the isolation center. The first one, I was taken there because I started vomiting. And then the experience was bad because they put me in a dirty room that they didn't clean after the last person. I could see footprints of the last person leading from the door, from the toilet room. Um, I ended up discharging myself. I never got a call back. A patient disappeared. Maybe, I don't know, she was kidnapped. Nothing. The second one was much better, but also another thing during the first isolation experience, the doctor came to tell me that I should go back home and treat malaria because he doesn't think I have COVID. His reason is that it has passed the incubation period. There was information there available online that COVID lasts for months in other people's bodies. It lasted for almost 2 months in mine. Um, so I returned to the I went to run another test only to find out I was positive again. Came back, they had no choice but to admit me because my symptoms, I still had symptoms, and I had another positive result. So again, they sent me back home after 8 days without running another test. So when I started having trouble breathing, they took me to the isolation center, only for them to take my vitals and say, I think he said my oxygen level was too low. So we had to go to a bigger hospital because there are complications. So it took me a while before I even did another test and find out that I was COVID free. Something that happened during that time was I could not breathe on my own. It's like I had to be under the effect of a nebulizer I was using then in order to breathe. So it was a bit serious then. People were worried, but later it just became, yeah, she's always sick, that kind of thing. So it really was something, yeah, that I noticed that.
We are down to our last minute, and that's the time everybody wants to ask our special guest a question. How many hands do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, lo. Okay. We can only have one more question. Who has a pressing question? You can always catch, I think the gentleman at the back, his hand is shaking more. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Make it quick, make it good. Don't make me regret this.
No. Thank you very much. My journalism, and you will not make me to just. I want to ask question for,
Just quickly.
Thank you very much. My question is that, like, all the controversial regarding the issue of COVID-19 trust fund by federal government during that time, have you by any chance come across such, maybe you benefited from such intervention by federal government? That's my question to you. Thank you very much.
Does anybody know what this question was? Okay. Because I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're asking about the controversial issue with COVID. Yes, of course, people were telling me not to ignore the COVID results and just do their treatment, which is usually.
No.
My question was truly, here is my question, please. My question was truly about the government intervention regarding COVID-19 trust fund under Boss Mustafa. As of then, I know about, federal government was.
Okay, sir, you're going to have to ask her the question directly,
Yes,
please.
that's the question.
I already regret it. What was the question, please? Can somebody else help me?
The question is, Did she benefited from any intervention from federal government regarding
Thank you.
COVID-19?
Did you benefit financially from any government COVID intervention fund?
No, I just told you I went to the isolation center and they put me in a room they didn't clean. I didn't benefit from anything. Yeah, so no to your question.
Oh, I already regret it. And on that note, I'm going to take one question to sort of paper over that. That lady who we denied the mic, please. That will be the last question. Please make it quick. I think it was, where did he go? Give her the mic. Let's just go. Who was the person? Yeah, the lady in pink actually asked for the mic first. The lady in pink or around that side, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you. My name-
Another man. Hi.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Abdul Halim, and I was
Okay.
just wondering, do you think there should be limits to accommodations? Do you think there should be extent where you, as a patient of a chronic illness, would just differ and understand that this is the right time to just move on?
I don't think she heard you, sir.
Okay, do you think there should be limits to accommodations? Do you think there should be a time where you, as a patient of a chronic illness, would sit down and understand that this is my time to just leave?
I think not to leave, if I may add quickly. I think what we kind of
Do you think there should be limits to accommodations?
to the level of sorry.
To what?
So I think what he's trying to say and what we talked about was what is the responsibility of the patient also to being there, standing up, and not expecting the accommodations. The accommodations is talking about what is the responsibility of the patient to also accommodate other people and also accommodate the lack of knowledge to also show up sometimes, even though you're ill, because it's a two-way thing sometimes, and people don't understand.
Okay,
There will be
Let me just
responsibility
wrap
to-
it up. Basically, they are saying if they are making all those accommodations for you, what are they? They are being the devil's advocate. What should other people get in return?
When I'm sick and I'm in pain and I'm experiencing all these symptoms, I don't ask people to go through it with me because it's physically impossible for you to. So the only thing I can do when I'm giving accommodations at work is for me to do what I'm able to do, what I'm supposed to do, which I think I'm doing a great job. And I have to work twice as hard to get one article done compared to somebody who is existing. So the only thing you're doing is you're also contributing to the work. Of course, I'm not going to an office and asking them to put me on the payroll and I'm just collecting money. I show up, I do the work, and I explain, and I'm very honest, I'm very upfront with what I'm very upfront with my condition. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can do because when
Yeah.
I'm going through the pain, I go through it alone.
There's a reason it's called a chronic illness, and as somebody who also has it, I'm going to say if you're expecting accommodations from people who are going through life-threatening things, I hope you never have to experience that, because when it comes to a case of do am if e easy, we're going to know whether you go fit survive. On that note, thank you very much, Hauwa. Thank you so much for sharing.